Hola mundo, hello world. I'm Ashua Nicole, and I just wanted to have a little chat about where we are right now. It's April 7th, and it's a Tuesday, I think. We're in the midst of a coronavirus, pretty much worldwide shelter in place. Some countries are on the back end of this. We're still in the middle of it here in the States. And I'm in Illinois, and we are continuing a shelter in place. So it's been 3 weeks, I think, we're in the third week, and things are getting pretty serious. It's also spring, and it's just gorgeous outside. It's over in the 70s today in Chicago, and people really love to be outside where I live. So I went for a very short drive, and there are lots of people out, but I was kind of expecting that. So I got home really quickly. But I wanted to talk a little bit about trust and manifestation. I was talking to some of my friends throughout the weekend and this morning, and we're having this really great conversation about how we manifest. And now is a really important time for manifesting, certainly for claiming what you want. And that's specifically one of the things I wanted to touch on. The power of claiming the things that you prefer. This is a really pivotal year. The big message of this year is taking action. We can't just sit home and expect everything to just magically appear for us, even though that has possibly happened in the past. It's not something that we can rely on as much right now, because it actually takes our active participation. This is going to be a requirement going forward. We can no longer sit on the sidelines of our lives and watch things happen and acquiesce to the preferences and the choices and opinions of others. We really have to get in there, and we have to be actively engaging in claiming the reality that we prefer. We do create our own realities. You do that all day, every day. And yeah, if your choice is to have things just come to you, that's fine, but you still have to make a claim. You still have to stake your choice. You still have to, and I did that purposely. We can stake claims, but know that when you make a claim, you have made a decision. So it's really about choice. So you really want to stake a choice and be very deliberate and conscious in doing so, and making sure that you're honoring your preference, your choice, your desired outcome, without attachment to said outcome. But it's really about choosing, this is a result I'd like to see. This is how I'd like to feel about it. It's funny, a friend of mine, we were having some conversation, and they were telling me a story about they were traveling and they were in another country, and they had a lot of luggage with them at the time. And anybody who's traveled to Europe, or if you live in Europe, having a lot of luggage, especially large luggage, and not being picked up by a car somewhere can be a little bit of a hassle. And this person was going to have to get on some sort of public transportation. They had a large suitcase and a small suitcase and a backpack. So they had all this luggage, and it started raining. And he got really frustrated during the traveling to his destination process. And at some point, he got on a bus and he was like, I need it to not rain when basically I need it to be clear skies, or at least no longer raining by the time I get to my destination. I don't want to deal with this. And sure enough, by the time he arrived at where he was going, it was no longer raining. That's making a claim. Sometimes it can be done with a little bit of an attitude. I know I've done that, and it's funny. And we were talking about the dynamics of that. I had another situation years ago, little story I like to tell about. I was paying child support. I paid child support for years, and my kids were living with their dad, and it was a fantastic arrangement. I'm glad they got to experience that, and he had the time with them. But when the order was supposed to end, I did not understand at that time that I would have to go back to court. So I'm having this conversation with a friend of mine on a train platform, and we're on our way to work, and she's telling me that I have to engage this process. And I was like, what do you mean? I have I have an order. It has an expiration date. It doesn't just end on that date. She's like, no, you have to file a motion. And when you file a motion, the other party has to show up to court, and they have to basically acknowledge that you've met your obligation and you can be released from this agreement. And I was just like, okay, that sounds fair. And so she said, but, don't be surprised if you can't get a court date for a couple of months. And I looked at her. It was so funny. We were sitting on the train, and it was quite crowded that day, so we weren't able to sit together. We were sitting in seats, aisle seats, right across from one another, kind of having this conversation. And I looked at her and I was like, oh no, they're going to give me a court date next week. And I staked a claim right there. And it's funny because I can remember many times that I've made this claim, or claims, not that particular claim, but I've made claims with that same kind of attitude where I'm just like, oh no, I need this thing to happen. And in the moment that I'm doing that, I have absolutely nothing else in mind. It's just clear. It's final. I'm doing so with a conviction that this is the only acceptable result. And it's full stop, period. Nothing else it will do. And being very interested in having an effortless experience relative to that. Like just doing it without any idea or notion, and certainly not an ounce of fear. It was just like, it was a clear declaration. It's just like, my friend declaring, oh no, this rain has got to stop. I can't do what I'm doing and have it raining. Like you're doing it with this absolution of your request. And it's really more of a command at that point. When you're commanding your reality, things happen. And I have to tell you, we had that conversation. I want to say it was a Thursday morning. It may have been a Wednesday, but I think that would be actually a bit generous. I'm pretty sure it was a Thursday. I took care of all the paperwork. I got so far with phone calls that day, ended up having to go home, dig up some paperwork, coming back the next day, calling back to the courthouse, getting the rest of the information. Where do I need to go? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to file? How much it's going to cost? And then I went over and took care of it immediately. And I'm in line to get the court date for this motion that I need to appear before a judge to do and to take care of. And the lady looks up at me and she looks at my paperwork and she's like, okay, let me see what we can do. And she checks her system and she's like, how's next Thursday? And I was like, perfect. Because no other response was going to be okay. I needed it to happen that week because I had plans for like the next month, and it was supposed to end at the end of the next month. And I wasn't even planning to be in town and all this other stuff. So, and sure enough, everything went perfectly. Their dad showed up. Everything was fine. We took care of it. Not a problem. It was effortless, easy, fantastic. 7 days is all it took because I was just like, I need this to happen. I've done things like that with manifesting money, having things resolve themselves, whether it's work situations or anything. I do that quite a bit, and it's funny. It's funny to me because in the moments that I'm doing that, I'm so in my power about the claim that I'm not really breaking down the mechanics of what it is or how I got to that point. Part of it is, I think I've always just kind of had a bit of a clarity about me, about kind of my life and how I like it to go. And so I'm perfectly comfortable making decisions in that regard. If you're not someone who's comfortable making decisions, you might want to be more vigilant of what your process is. How are you making decisions? Are you acquiescing to other people? Are you flipping back and forth? Do you like hanging out on the fence? Do you not ever want to commit to a choice? Those things will have kind of a weird effect on your experiences because you're not completely in control. You're not interested. I don't know if it's that you're interested or whatever, but you might want to examine that. And there are things that you can do, but I'm pretty clear on who I am, first of all, what my preferences are, pretty much in every situation I can imagine. If I'm not making a clear choice, it's because I'm really not so much interested in any choice, or I'm just like, whatever works. I'm totally neutral about this thing. Let somebody else make the decision, especially if they have some sort of attachment or conviction about it. I just try not to get involved. It's fine, but that's kind of rare. I'm usually pretty well locked into, or at least tuned in to what it is I need from any given situation, and I'm choosing that. I'm actively pursuing it, choosing it, taking action on it, moving in that direction. So that's one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the power that we have right now in this twilight zone of a year, 2020. It's a very strange time. People are spending a lot of time in their homes, sometimes alone if you live alone, but if you live with others, you're spending a lot of time with family, perhaps children. I just touched my face. That's kind of a joke about this time, don't touch your face or whatever, but I'm in the comfort of my home. So it's perfectly fine, and my hands are clean and my face is clean. So, but it's really interesting that we're now in this space where we have to come to terms with who we are and what we prefer and how we want to live, and possibly making some new choices about how we want to live, or examining how we have been living to this point, how we've been relating to others, what we would like to do once we're kind of set free from this situation. So all this stuff is coming up, and I'm having a lot of conversations about things like that with people. And the one thing I'd love to convey right now is the importance of just being able to understand how change happens. Change happens one moment at a time, one interaction at a time, one conversation at a time, one choice at a time, one thought at a time, one expectation at a time, one try at a time. I am not crazy about using that word because in my belief system, there is no try. It either is or it isn't. You do or you don't. Fence sitting is not necessarily supported right now in the world, in the ether, if you will. And so it's really important to know where you stand, because if you're not willing to make a choice, then you've already made a choice to basically accept whatever choices other people are willing to make for you or trying to assert upon you. So now is a really good time to start thinking about how you impact the situations that you encounter. Most importantly, it's about understanding that we are always serving others. We are always communicating to others, interacting with others through our beingness, through our frequency, through the vibration that you hold when you show up to any situation. And the true value of being someone who understands this stuff is that you also understand that when you bring your highest vibing self, when you're operating from a basis of love, which is pretty much the highest frequency you can attain or achieve, when you are operating anything close to that, you are always of service to others in the best possible way you can be. You're always of benefit. You're always going to be of benevolent impact. You're always going to be of help to others, whether they're interacting with you or not. Just because you entered the space, you're bringing a high frequency, you're bringing light to dark places when you are operating from a basis of love, from an understanding that you create your own reality, that you have power to impact the experience that you have. Now, we are not able to create in the experiences of others. I know lots of people who like to control things, think that they do, but it's just not possible. You can only create their version of you and your experience of reality, and your version never exactly matches theirs. It's never even the same color or looks the same way. If there were 5 people sitting here, there'd be 5 different versions of reality happening simultaneously. And even though we may agree on some things, we're not all having precisely the same experience, because we're all a signature frequency and a signature perspective coming to the situation. And so never underestimate your ability to impact a situation or someone else in a really wonderful way, because no one else can be you. No one else can do you. No one else can express as you do. No one else can feel like you do. No one else can sound like you do. No one else can, emote the way you do. You're here for a reason. If you're still breathing, you have purpose, and the world needs you. And it's really of the greatest benefit to yourself and to everyone around you if you bring as much light to any situation, any conversation, any video call, or any interaction or live stream or recorded material. If you are operating in your highest excitement, in your passion, from a basis of I love to do this, from excitement, you are always going to be of service. You're always going to be of benefit, and the world will continue to benefit and be better and better, because you came and you did what you wanted to do. You did what you were called to do, because you provided some additional light in places and in people's experiences, especially, that you could never imagine may have needed it. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say today and cover. We'll have another couple of videos, I'm sure, before all this is over. I just take the action when I feel in the mood to do so. Today was my highest excitement. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again soon.